All right, welcome to Powerssquared Raw and Real. This is number 27, and we've subtitled it Midlife Crisis. I'm M.A. Powers.
And I'm JL Powers.
We are trying some new technology, so we weren't actually able to test it. So you guys are getting the beta for that. So we'll see how it goes when we're done.
Yep. I've got a fancy new microphone here. Hopefully it improves the sound.
And I have one of my old music microphones on, so we'll see if my voice is more low and resonant.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll show everybody so they can see this thing. See? Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
This
well, we're going to talk a little bit about midlife crisis. You know what happens in midlife crisis?
What?
One of the things, you start purchasing like weird technology, you know, like microphones.
Like microphones?
Wait, I thought it was guitars, but I already have one. Your guitar.
I don't have a guitar. I'm unlikely to purchase one, at least for myself. But
yeah, I think wait, we're never past being rock stars. Don't make that dream die, because if that dies, then a little part of me will always be buried.
Oh no. Oh no, I would hate to have that happen. Well, we did get to join Angry Squirrels, right?
Yes,
for their European tour.
Yep, Angry Squirrels, you can see right there in the back behind me. Yes, that was a very good tour. Unfortunately, they didn't let me touch any of their instruments. I don't know why.
Well, I have nightmares about acorns being thrown at me.
Well, you know, that happens too. So here we go.
So, midlife crisis. Well, not crisis exactly. So that article that I sent you talked about how a crisis should be defined as something that's immediate, easily defined and definable, and can be sort of immediately solved, right?
Sure. I just wanted to put in that so that people know who we're talking about. This is an article by, I don't know, Brene, B-R-E-N-E, Brown. And it's the Midlife Unraveling. Sorry, keep going.
Right. And it was a blog post that she wrote. And she, you know, she says, of course, a midlife crisis or a crisis should be defined as something that is, you know, easily identifiable and can be solved. Right. Sure. So like somebody having a heart attack is clearly a crisis that can be solved by calling 911, rushing them to the hospital, et But
sure.
She talks about it as an unraveling and says that that you can just see like little parts of your life beginning to unravel, all of these things that you created around yourself to help you face life in your teens and 20s and maybe even early 30s have now ironically become the very thing that is preventing you from being the person that you should be. And so she talks about that as an unraveling. So does that resonate with you at all? I thought the article was really interesting. Does it resonate with you at all? Do you feel this sense of unraveling?
Sure. And I think it's more that when we're reaching the age, and it is for me, where you look at your life and or at least for me in particular, because I'm doing something that has low social value.
As a stay-at-home dad?
Yeah, as a stay-at-home dad, although it has very high life quality value for us as a family. And but you look at your life a little bit and you have that sense of, could I do more, or should I be doing more, or is there something, what is the meaning of who we are and what we're doing? And so, yeah, I think, but there's nothing acute about it, that's for sure, because we're here, you know, I'm doing what I need to be doing, but at times too, it's funny because you can't even put your finger on what you want. that's my issue, right? It's
Mhm.
like I want something, but I don't know what it is, because I know, and I think that's part of growing in maturity too, because you realize all those things that you thought would probably give you real satisfaction and happiness when you were younger, if you got to some sort of place, aren't necessarily the things in your life that are give you deep satisfaction. They're things that can
Mhm.
give you great meaning, and well, they can give you some meaning and some satisfaction, but maybe there's something more internal about coming to grips, as she talked about in this article, about like, who am I, what is it that I want. And I've actually, before you even sent this article to me, the reason why it really resonates with me is that I've been asking the question just in the last month, like, what is it that I really like to do? Like, what is it that I love to do? And I can't even really put, there are things that I like to do, but there's nothing that I do quite gives me the same, satisfaction or pleasure that it did 10 years ago. And
Mhm.
it's not that it's bad, and it's not that it doesn't give me pleasures, but it's just not like, I'm like, that's not something that I really live for. So that's just
Right.
the way it is. And so it is like, what do I live for? What is it that I'm working for? What is it I'm trying to do? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm having some of the same issues. I mean, my whole life has changed so much in the last year and a half because I launched a publishing company, and I spent most of my 20s and my 30s really eking out a life where I could orient it around my writing, so that, for example, as soon as I realized I could teach online, I started teaching online because that allowed me greater control over my schedule, less time traveling to and from classes, etc. Just, I've always sort of tried to orient my life around this all-consuming thing of writing, which is still extremely important to me. And I certainly find, for example, today I was able to write a little bit, and I still find that I'm a lot happier in general with life if I'm writing. But at some point you sort of realize I might not ever be that New York Times best-selling author that everybody loves so much and that everybody's reading, and you come to grips with that and realize maybe that's okay. Like, I still really love writing, but and I'm still going to keep writing and passionately and publishing, but that's maybe not who I am as much.
Well, what does that mean anyways? Because like, I, when
The
you get
thing that you do isn't who
is
you
not,
are.
yeah, I kind of find that weird, because I think it's upsetting um when who we are is so subjective, or it's upsetting to me. But I understand the feeling greatly, right? Because there's so many things, but that if
Do you mean when it's relative to how other people
exactly,
look at
exactly.
you?
I don't,
So I'm a
you're
writer, but because
right,
I'm not this New York Times best-selling writer, is that really part of my
right,
identity that I can proudly proclaim in the way that
right, exactly. I
it's
mean,
subjective, it's relative to how others
right.
view
At
me?
what point can you tell people like, I am X? Especially because I don't know. I don't know.
And so what you're saying is, okay, who am I?
Right.
And maybe the things that we tag onto our identities should be less important than so.
Oh, I don't mind having like a concrete, like super like answer, like, I am a writer, but I don't want it to be so squishy that I don't feel it if other people aren't acting or behaving towards me in a certain way that I would like. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I don't even mind if it's something really concrete, like, I am a um this is my identity, and this is the one thing or two things that I really like get up for in the daytime, and I don't, that's the issue with me, is I'm not sure what that is.
Mm.
Not that I
Well,
wouldn't get up and do the things that I do. I enjoy them too, and I love life, but it's not like I wake up in the morning leaping out of bed, proclaiming to the world that I am a dishwasher and I will wash these dishes really well, but I still do it, right? But you know what I mean? Like,
right.
there's a big difference between what you do every day and then that thing, or
Defining you.
well, that you define yourself, right? We all have an identity, and our identity is the stories we tell ourselves. And I think you get to a point in middle age that's before this time, that story I could tell myself was always, I'm not there yet, but now I'm here, right? I'm here. It's not like I'm going to go back to college. I could, but I probably won't, right? And so it's like, well, what am I when it's no longer, I think that's the big question for me. Who am I when I'm no longer a potential? Because that's what you are when you're young. Now it is who I am. And I think that's the great unraveling as a midlife crisis, is then you have to internally be like, okay, this is who I am. I'm not just becoming, but now I'm living. Now I'm living. But I got to know who it is that I am so that I can live that, right? And I think that that's a precious thing, but it's also really difficult when you have to actually come to grapple with, this is who I am, not just this is who I'm becoming. Right?
But does that contradict what we have been talking about in the last couple of
not at all
episodes, where we talk about, I'm not a genius yet,
not
because I'm not dead yet.
So.
And we're always in that process of becoming.
Right. And I don't,
as long as we're not dead.
Right. No. And I don't think it's like you'll find new things to do, right? But who am I? I think is a slightly different question, because who am I is somebody who, like, I think we can tell our story in a different, I think at this age you tell your story in a different way, in the sense that you're like, I am somebody who is persistent. I am somebody who loves, without the qualifying at the end. Maybe that's what we start to become. And it's a hard transition, because you have to start living that thing instead of, well, at some point I'll have learned enough life lessons that I'll know who I am. And it's like, well, I'm running out. I mean, we've got lots of life left, but at some point I think I'm asking myself the question of, okay, then when do you start living that thing? Right. And I think this is that time to start being like, okay, I'm going to live this thing, even if I'm terrible at it. This is, at certain parts of it. I mean, we're very multifaceted, and I know I'm being very vague and I'm not being terribly specific, but I don't think it contradicts the fact that, no, you can become a genius because you love art, or you love, and you love to create. I am a creator and I love to create. And I am going to create this thing because I love it. And I get better and better at creating because I continually create and I continually do this. It's not, I think in the past, I would have asked the question in a different light. I will be a sculptor, right? Not, and so I don't know. Maybe it is contradictory, and I am trying to think it through this conversation, which isn't always as articulate as I would hope. But
well, maybe I guess the difference is between those skills and talents that you're trying to acquire in the first part of your life that you think reaches towards the heart of who you are. But in fact, it's not the skills and talents that you acquire, which you can continue acquiring for the rest of life.
Sure.
But rather the qualities of who you are and how you behave in relationship to the people around you that suddenly become the thing that you wish to define you.
And I think some people talk about being not childish, but being childlike. And in a sense, I know this is another contradictory thing that I'm going to say, but hear me out for just a second, right? I think when you become a teenager and when you become a young adult, you have enough skills to say, I can become this skillful thing, right? And that's what you're working for really hard. And in your 30s, you're trying these skills and these sets of things, and you're learning lessons along the way, hopefully, that are deeper than just I'm getting good at this skill, or I'm getting bad at this skill, or I'm making more money, or I'm not making as much money as I'd like. Hopefully you're learning those lessons. And then you hit at a certain point where you realize maybe I've attained those skills, but I still don't have an ultimate like thing that I want, whatever that is. And now I have to decide, or who am I once I've attained what I wanted, or who am I because I haven't attained those skills and now they're not that important to me. And then you become more childlike when you're like 10 and younger, in the sense that when you're that age, you don't have a lot of those skill sets, and you're not old enough to understand those things. And so you do think of yourself maybe as like, I'm kind to my friends, or I'm kind to these things. And there's a sense of wonder about the world, and you just haven't gotten so focused on the things that our culture says that we should become, that you still have a sense of wonder about the world. And I think that that's a beautiful thing about becoming a child again, hopefully in middle age, is to have that sense of wonder, because you realize, wait a minute, maybe the skill sets and the things that I was trying to attain are very valuable and good, and they let me live a good life, but they're not who I am. And maybe I can become a childlike again, in the sense where I have that wonder about who am I, without those trappings, and how can I be that kind person, or how can I find the things that I love because I love to do them, not because my culture or my society says that I need to love this or I need to do this. And so that midlife crisis, or in our case, the midlife unraveling, hopefully will spur us on to a more introspectively eye of wonder, instead of such an eye of I must become a New York Times best-selling author. Instead, be like, I'm writing because I have this sense of wonder about these characters and this weird world that we have created, and this strange thing, and who knows what's going to happen next. So I hope that that's where I'll go as we speak, but I also am struggling, muddling my way through it like the rest of us.
Yeah. Last year, I'm going to say this real quick, and then I have to go because I have to pick up my kid from camp. But last year, when I was really, really struggling with a lot of things, and I was talking with our mom about it, she said, well, don't forget that you're 43. Like, this is part of being 43, is like struggling with everything in your life. And she said, even your grandmother, which is her mother, who's always struck us as this extremely contented person with life, at least.
And may I make up a word? Sagacious?
Yes. Is that really a made-up word?
Sagacious? I hope it is.
It is
Very
really a word. It's not a made-up word. It's a real word, right?
Sagacious?
Yeah. Wisdom. Doesn't it mean wisdom?
I don't know. Look it up. But
anyway, we'll look it up later. She was very wise, yes, and content. And she said, Mom said, even your grandmother at 43 was, but I'm still a person. She said, she told me one time, but I'm a person too. And I was like, okay.
That's true.
So, all righty, we got to end this because
I'm going to say one last thing too, and that is from our grandmother. We can't all be winners, but we sure all can be losers. How can we not end another Powerssquared with that one? All right, everybody.
Good one.
We'll talk to you next week.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.